Hello. Hi there, traders. Just let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. So I just got a chat on the go. Okay, g'day, Helen. Sorry, guys, just having got a chat going at the moment, so I might be just a bit slow to get started. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we all had a good weekend also. All right, we'll get up and running. Welcome to Trade Setup on the live stream. It is what about the 24th of September, so start of a new week, which is good. For anyone that's new, you can see us in the top left-hand corner for Twitter at trade_setup. Top right, you'll see Facebook link, and the bottom right will be our YouTube channel. Just subscribe to us at YouTube there. All right, just 1 second there, guys. Uh, all right, Gino, hi, mate. So we've got Friday night was pretty much a lackluster night. I think the US or the Dow is playing catch up with the S&P as it heads into new highs. You've got the tariff concerns. Obviously, we know that that's not quite. Sorry, I've got someone here that's not quite sure what's going on. So we have just one tick there. Sorry, guys. Just be a tick there, guys. Just 1 second. Sorry about this. All right. All ready to go. Let's just get it up and running. All right. So we have the US. The sound being cut out now. Sorry, Gino. It's just me. I got caught up in the chat. Someone's having a few issues with their login, but I can get in. No problem. It's all working. I just can't seem to do it from their end. But we'll see if someone else can grab the chat from me. Now, yeah, so like I said, Friday night, the US, the Dow's played catch up with the S&P, I'd say, the broader market. The broader market was pretty much flat. The NASDAQ was down. So it looks like they're starting to sort of edge out of, or potentially just edge out of we call it NASDAQ stocks, or your tech stocks anyway, that have led the charge the last few months, I guess, last year. Um, so they're still ticking along. They're ticking along okay, but I think people might be booking profits. They're still, the concern now is looking towards growth, future potential growth in the US. And I think, look, the only reason they're raising rates is because of employment. Employment is still, or the labour market's still going strong over there. But I think potentially it's getting contained. So it'd be interesting to see how it all goes. But yeah, the Dow, because of, I think that's been held back a bit because of the trade or the tariff tensions. We want to talk about the trade tensions and the tariffs into the US. So the Dow was held back, and I think it's playing catch up now that it's looking like when they didn't lob in the 25%, it was only 10%. So I think they're sort of looking at that. Okay, if it's only 10%, there's not much that effect from that. Maybe we've overestimated the effect. So I think that's why the Dow, kicking into new all-time highs. That and a bit of euphoria of being into the all-time new highs. So that's what I see the US at the moment. But the broader market's probably one just at the moment to keep an eye on. That's pretty much flat. So let's just get rid of that. Let's get over to our market. I've changed to black if anyone didn't notice. I like the black colors. Um, we'll just have a look at the overall market. What I want. Here we go. Indices. I'll make that thicker. The Dow, the Dow, the Dow. Why can't I get the? No, I want indices, guys. Can I get what I want? Layout. Markets. Some weird reason, this has decided to change. Let's just get the. Well, that's it there. So that's the S&P. You can see the previous highs were at 26,616, and we've ticked above that. So I think we closed at, what was that, 21,7, closed 726. So closed on Friday into new all-time highs. That structure, I mean, probably have to go back to the weekly. It's looking good. And it has kicked off the last few days as it's just powered into new all-time highs. It is, I mean, it's getting a bit extended up here on the Dow. So maybe what we're saying is it's been factored in. It's probably close to have been factored in already, or people are going to buy it into the all-time highs like we would expect. But whether or not that's going to kick on is another thing. But that weekly chart, that looks quite nice. I mean, that could easily just power on for this week, grind higher through 27,000 up to 27,500. We don't know what's going to happen on the Dow, but it's the S&P. For some reason, I just can't get that. I don't know why it doesn't want to show me. The S&P is the one. I don't want ASX only, do I? Major. That's weird. Normally, global. There we go. That worked a treat. I don't know why that changed. So here's the S&P. That's just edging away into all-time highs, doing quite nicely. It's still holding higher lows. So really, just looking at the charts, nothing's really easing off at the moment. It's still kicking higher, still doing nicely. There's not much has changed. So we're really just drilling down to our market. Our market's actually opened down. We're only down 4.5 at the moment. And we're still in that grind. I'll get that on another chart. We're still sort of in that grind motion, which to be honest, I don't like too much. I'd rather see, for more confidence, I'd rather see it sort of bang down to test 61 or down towards that level and then start to hold a higher low to find to find confidence in the overall market. But at the moment, this potentially, we've had quite a bit of heat at the start of the month come out of the market from the highs at above 63.50, 63.75 thereabouts. Quite a bit of heat's come out of the market, and now we're just grinding higher. So it's not exactly what you want to see if you're a bit of a bull. If you're a bear, that might not be too bad because we're not kicking into highs. Let me just make that a bit smaller. See, once we popped up, you get a red candle. Okay, the bulls are starting to edge back in 61.25. They pushed it higher the next, what are we on the weekday? The next day here, but it couldn't make it. The next time they got into new all-time highs, sorry, all-time highs, new highs, which was just above 61.81. We got into those highs, and then we backed off the next day, got into highs, only a few points, backed off. So it's not really, it's more of a grind, which leads me to believe there's going to be some downsides soon. We could just touch on it's a 20 SMA at the moment. Let's just look at, I want to flick it over to my normal charts. Just go to, that's not what I want. That's a bit rubbish. Daily, end of day, thick. There we go. That's not it either. Having a bit of a problem here, guys. Swing. We've got too many charts. Stochastic. Let's just look at that one. End of day, thick. There we go. So you can see these are the exponential M&As. The normal ones I look at. So potentially we're just a bit of a reversion to the mean. We've had that big sell-off here. We touched on 61. We're a bit of a grind here. The MAs are crossed down. And I mean, that's not convincing either. This is more sideways than anything else. So I do expect potentially a bit of a pullback. And then I'll be looking for a higher low. I'd look for the confidence in a higher low if I'm going to edge back into the market fully and see if we can just jump in. And if this tests down, we can build that higher low, that'd be good. But if we can't, we could potentially roll over 61. But again, it's going to depend on what the overall market's doing. Now we've got the headwinds in place. What's happening in the emerging markets we've spoken about. Now that's not, they have taken a few steps to support their currency, but they haven't done, they're not massive steps. I mean, they did in Turkey, they did raise interest rates, but it's still the US dollar pressure. Now, if the US dollar turns around and heads and rallies, then they're going to have issues again with their currencies. They're going to have to take some further steps, so that could cause global pressure. US dollar at the moment is still sort of bouncing around. It's not convincing in any way. It does head south and then bounce back up. So it's not whether there's going to be some emerging market pressure down the track. Would be another thing we'll have to keep an eye on though. It's the China and US situation. Although it's a bit positives lately, I mean, if they don't come to an agreement, the US can actually come out and put another 15%, top it up to 25% on the 200 billion, and then I think that's going to be sort of the kicker. Then maybe we get a bit of a sell-off in the Dow and the S&P, which is going to drag us lower. And it's going to hurt commodity prices. There's going to be a bit of a flight to US dollar as a safe haven, which is going to put pressure on commodity prices, which is going to in turn put pressure on the ASX. So there's still, there's still a lot of headwinds to contend with. But if we start to work it out, this might be capped on the downside at 61 or 61.25, which would be interesting. But this price action is not convincing. It's hard to find some good trades in this kind of climate. And I would like to see, ideally, I'd love to see this type of price action where you pull back, build the higher low, and then go again. But the fact that we've crossed this sell-off, we were expecting it for pretty much the last few months. See this grind higher, had a bit of a dip down here, got bought up pretty quick, took out the highs. It didn't close above the highs, and then boom, straight down. This is different price action to where we crossed the MAs here, pulled back to the MAs, built your higher low in here, and then took off. It's a bit of a different, so it might take some time just to work out. And we didn't really have those. We probably did the global problems there, but I don't think the market was still quite positive at that stage. So I'll be looking for that higher low here and just see if we can get into something. The market will be a bit more positive on the upside. Now, our positions at the moment. So just 1 second there, guys. Give me that out of the way. All right. So what we've got here, we've got Mesoblast, which is kicked off okay, but we're having a bit of obviously retraction off the highs. You can see those highs around 190. Had a bit of a tip, had a go at 190, and then it's pulled back. Today, we'll just have to see intraday. I mean, it's getting a bit extended on the daily chart. The weekly chart's fine. To me, that's still pretty good. And that is getting up to the 200 MA. That's the SMA on that. Intraday, you can see on the 30-minute chart, it is a bit extended up here. And just whether we can start finding some buying pressure at 184, which could take us through on the daily chart through that 190 level. I think that's the key at the moment, is that 190. Go back to the daily. So that's the position we got open. It's up on that one from 175. The weekly's still, I really do like that weekly chart. That's still looking quite good. You've had that press down. We pressed up through the highs at $3, just around here. Pushed back down, built some higher lows. We retested two, built another higher low here. So I really am expecting that to press on through two, but it's going to get through obviously this previous 190 zone. If we can press up through two, if we can get through two, whether or not it's just going to be a washout, like, this was a washout of this level, this was a washout of this level, whether this is just going to be a washout of, the 190 zone or even two, is yet to be seen. But either way, if it does play out that way, we're going to be up and we can reassess it as we go. Molly, I mean, that's still looking good. It's got that 25 to 26 cent mark, which is going to cause a few issues. It is chopping around between 22 and 23 and a half. There's a buyer in there, but there's also a seller just sort of tipping it over. I think the buyer will buy some up, step aside. The sellers will be sitting there looking at it. This is just an intraday I've been noticing, and they will come and knock it back down to 22 and a half, and the buyer will buy it back up to 23, close it at 23 or 3.5, which is still fairly positive. I don't mind that kind of price action if it's going sideways when and you're taking up some of the selling pressure, or it's the buyers are soaking up some of that selling pressure. That's quite nice if we can see that, and they can have another run at those highs. The weekly can still press a bit higher. That's why I'm expecting Molly to get up to around 26, 25, 26, which is going to be good from a percentage gain perspective for us. But we'll just have to sort of sit and wait and see how it's going. We're still supported by those higher lows on that structure, that price action on the weekly's looking good. This inside higher low here, so that weekly's looking good. I'm really earmarking that if you take that from low to high, a break potentially at least test of 25 or 6 level, and even a breakthrough to potentially take us up towards, if we can, up to 30 cents. But again, we'll see how that's going. West Farmers, that short has gone against us today, but if you go back to the daily, it is under pressure at the moment, but whether or not it can hold up above 49, I'd like to take a partial off at 49, but we really have to just assess that as we go. Not as negative as I thought it would be today when the overall market's under pressure, but again, this bounces all in context to a move down at the moment. KGN, that's our other short, which is the one thing I don't like about this is the fact that the daily is stochastics down in oversold territory. We've got that green candle on Friday. It's only a minor inside level, but it's still some good volume coming then. If we can squeeze out the lows from Friday, which were, what was that, 569, I think we can touch down to a partial at 550 quite easily. We'll have to see how that goes into the end of the day, but definitely we're up on that one. I'm just reassessing that one, whether I just jump in and take a partial now. It's always a bit more difficult on the short side because shorts don't last quite as long and they could turn around and retrace on you quite easily. So it's a bit harder. I mean, you get moves like that, that's great, but when it's sort of a bit grindy here, I'm weighing up whether this is going to pop or whether it's just going to take off to the downside. I mean, to me, the likelihood this might have a bit of a pop is getting a bit higher, and I don't really want to sit there on my short and get stopped out of that one. So that's the concern at the moment with that, but we'll see how it goes. Well, the others, we've got CDA. We took a partial on that at 335, I think. It just missed a cent. We had a partial at 340 and it got the 339. So that was a bit aggravating when I saw it pop up to 340 and I thought I was better off just taking a partial while it's there. Booking the gains. We've got the rest to stop. I think it's above break even. We might have moved at 310 or 15 if I can find out. $3 still. So our stop's still down at $3 there. I'm giving it a bit of room to move. It might be up at 310. I thought it might have been 310 actually. No, haven't moved that, but I probably will be moving that soon. So CDA, we've got a partial on that. I'm going to move that to pretty much break even. We got 299 we got in through here on this little green candle. I want to move that a bit higher just to lock in. I mean, I figure if we're going to get done at 310, there's a good chance we're going to get taken out at 3 because this price action is quite positive. It's quite strong. So I do think we can tighten that up a bit, another 10 cents or so, potentially to 310. And like I said, if we do get stopped, I think the trade's probably over because it's probably going to take out this last few days of effort that it's put in. pretty much, well, most of September anyway, those daily highs, daily lows. And if it takes that, I'm not too keen on being in it, especially if it turns around and just comes straight down from here. And TER is the other one we got, which is still, yeah, that's quite strong. It touched above 60, I think it was around 66 today, 66 high today. Um, and what I'd love to see on this one again, we've taken a partial on that. I could never quite remember where. So TER, we were in at 52, partial at 59. We're now at 65. I'm still happy with that one. I think we've got our stop at 56, so we've got to stop right down here. I want to see that squeeze in a bit. I want to see that hold some daily higher lows. I don't mind if it holds some lower highs because I think what that's doing is just dragging in a few sellers or just getting a few people out of the market to turn around and squeeze them back out again. And if it can rally, um, so what's the market's always trying to do, or it's a rinse and repeat type of cycle, is if the market's getting a bit heavy on the long side, it's got to squeeze some traders out, put them back on the sidelines, and especially if you're sitting on profits, if they sat on profits, they're happy to book some gains, and then. Sorry, guys, just got someone still in the chat. I thought they got taken up. Just be a tick there, guys. All right. So yeah, I'm happy with that. If you can just grind in, just squeeze out some of those buyers. That I mean, they're going to be happy to book some gains, and if they do sit on the sidelines and see it go again, it's going to give them confidence. It's a lot easier to get to re-enter a trade when you've already booked gains than it is if you've booked a loss. I mean, it's just psychological. I mean, for me anyway, if I book some gains, I'm probably happy to jump back in if I see it reset up. But if I get stopped out of something, even if it looks like it's setting up again, it's that mental game. It's always harder to jump back in again. Does that make sense, guys? So that's why I don't mind if it can actually squeeze in and then start to go again, because what it's done is just cleared out a few of those late buys. If they have booked some gains, great. If they haven't, there might be a bit of revenge trade, and that's always good too. Um, but it just needs to put some people back on the sidelines if this continues. And the weekly chart still looks, you can see that weekly it's starting to lift here. I wouldn't mind seeing it if it can get up to that dollar zone. Um, it has reacted there previously. It's probably a bit harder to see. It has been up to weekly on previously, a bit of a bounce, but yeah, we'll just see how that goes. All right. So what we'll do, without further ado, just chuck in some trades there, guys. Um, all right, just chuck in some. Sorry, guys, we just got a bit of an issue with someone on the chat. So just be a second there, guys. I've just got a little bit of issue. I'll just quickly contend with. All right, let's just see if that goes. All right. Hopefully that's sorted out. And Luca, we'll look at that, no worries. My current small cap's good. So just on another front, yeah, like I was saying, there's a few. I've got my eye on a few. I mean, Pam was another one. I think that's quite good. I think it's got some work to do still. I'll just get back. You can see it's pressed down, and we've been holding high lows for the good part of probably 2 years now. It's been quite good. It's pressed up, had a bit of a pullback. That was to clean out. That was more of just a macro correction on the weekly basis, clean out some of those just cleaning out some of those late buys into that on the daily charts anyway. Clean them out, and it's started to proceed again. It's just pressed up. This move down, potentially a macro correction, but not a solid one. I'd say more on the daily charts. Yeah, now look at it as more of a macro correction here, and it's just starting to lift again. So you can see the most recent anchor to that downtrend. So this move down, or part of the correction, was the highs at around, what was that high? At around 51.5. So it's just started popping up now. But basically what we're looking for, I've got it on a chart. I'll get that up. Now, where are we? Where are we? Let's get those charts up. Pan. Here we go. Sorry, guys. All right, so pan, where are we? Here we go. So this is the chart I just drew up and put out as an alert today. It's more just to put on the watch list. I think this has got potential and it's just breaking out. So what we're looking for, we're always looking for, if something's going to go, is correcting lower, we're looking for it to hold that, once it gets through the anchor, and it can break up. It can get through the anchor sometimes, but hold within that corrective price action, and it can just sort of pop up, drag a few buys in, and then turn around and squeeze them out. It doesn't mean it's going to head lower, but it can actually just correct sideways, then break up, or then continue to break lower again. You never know. So that's why I'm always looking for this, especially just today. It's just broken up out of that contraction. So the next step is obviously is to see if it can grind back lower, build a higher low. So that's confirmation. If it can actually pull back and you get some further buying starting to step in and supporting a higher level, then that's exactly what you're after. And that way you can actually just start to follow it higher and see if you can get in on a setup. Potentially like, I'll draw it up here. Actually, I might just change the color of that, sorry. Black. I'll change that back. There we go. So what I'd be looking for here, we can see, come on, nothing's working for me today. Get up there. All right. So this is a contraction we're seeing it just break out today. So basically I want to see it break out there. Then I don't mind if it corrects lower, but then I want to see off an inside high low. So you know from there you can either have a really tight stop on it, if you do run stops, by the way. So this is a tight stop, or you can have it a tad lower, and that will be one. The only difference is one is sort of a daily high or low you're going from to have your tight stop, which I tend to go for all the time because I think if you can do that, you can contract lower. You build all this price action here is really that weekly high or low that you're looking for, and you're breaking it down to that daily price action. So really the move up can be here on a weekly chart and then go. So this is what you're looking for, but you're breaking this down. Pretty much this type of price action is what we're seeing on the daily chart here. So that's why you can pretty much, you can have a lot tighter risk on that. So that type of price action means that you can really tighten up your risk, and you're looking for that weekly move higher. And that should, I would expect, if that's the case, that to press up to 67.5 and so on. Does that make sense here, guys? But anyway, that's one that I was just looking at on Pan. The other one I didn't mind, but this is not really doing too much at the moment. It's fairly new. I want to see if this can hold, and it's only really the Friday price action, and this is OMN, one market. It's only done 134,000, but it's something just to keep an eye on because these things can really run. It's relatively new anyway, and it's only been on since May, so it's a fairly new stock. Anyway, let's get into what you got there, Aluka. All right, let me just get with what I'm seeing here. Now this one, is this what you got here, Gino? All right, sorry there, guys. So what we've got here, let's go back to monthly. I would, personally, I think there's a lot of work to do before this is, and it's probably going right back to the monthly chart. Because this actually doesn't look too bad, but I'll be looking for a monthly high or low, and then you can obviously break that down to your weekly. Whether or not it's going to be here is another thing off the weekly. I would like to see a high low above 9 before I even get any interest at all, because this is a corrective, well, this is correcting this price action from $12 down to 9 is really just correcting this leg up, and this is, it's been quite a solid leg up on the weekly charts, um, from support between 5 and $5.50. So what you've got is that's your support through here. It's your support zone more than anything else on your weekly chart, 5 to 550. The market's pressed up, and you can see, don't forget this is a weekly chart. We can see the higher highs, higher lows, pressed away up, and we had this massive pullback here. I think that has broken the anchor, so this is more corrective price action, and you can break that down if we just do that in a different color, just to show that it's more corrective. We've got this little pullback, tried to go again. We've got a lower high here, and then we've got that big sell-off down to $9. So what I'd be looking for here, if I was looking to jump in on the weekly chart, I don't care if it goes higher. I don't care if it goes, right up to $11. If it just has this V-shaped recovery here, I would be steering clear of it, even if it's showing a minor daily setup, purely because this could just sort of pop up on a weekly and then find more pressure. So, I mean, you can make money off it on the daily if you're looking for that minor high low, but then you've really got to be fleet of foot just to make sure that you don't get caught out if it does retrace. I mean, like this week here, back when it just went from 11 down to 9.50, $1.50 drop, probably a bit more than that, $1.60 or 70 drop in 1 week. So that could have caught a lot of people out. Now, you don't want to get caught if it just, you're jumping in from the daily, it just grinds higher and then turns around and gets another heavy sell off, because this corrective price action, we don't know if this is just sort of that minor move with this move down, pop up, another move down, or this is all part of one big move. So you get one big move down from 12 down to 9, a pop up, and then you got your lower high in the weekly, and this has a deeper correction, because it's all in respect to the monthly charts at the moment. The one thing that's working in its favor is that it's overextended. So this move down here is gone from overbought on the weekly down to oversold. So a lot of heat's come out of that market potentially. And by potentially, I mean, I want to see that high low for confirmation. So I want other people, like I said, if it moves up here, I just want to see a higher low. Don't forget it. I don't care if it really contracts in here, but I want to see the higher lows build. And this is that weekly price action that we're just talking about here. If this is the move, or if I draw that a bit nicer, if this is the move down like what we saw here, and we just pop up here, which is potentially that's the retracement to 10.25, and then we get a pullback to somewhere around 9.50, say 9.25, or in that zone, and then we get the high low starting to build on a weekly basis. So you want a couple of red candles in there, by the way. Then we get that starting to build on a weekly basis. Then I'll be happy to drill down on a daily, start to look for your daily entry setup with confirmation that your longer term weekly buys are starting to support it at higher levels. So you want other people to do that heavy lifting for you. Like we always say, heavy lifting meaning the higher low. You want everyone else to put their money at risk. And potentially, like I say, there's a lot of people out there when they trade, they just sit on the bid and buy it. Now, when you sit on your bid, you haven't really got confirmation. There's times when it obviously can work if it's a clear, if it's a good support level. Say when it's coming down, I'm just trying to think of an example. Say when it was coming down here, I mean, that's worked if you just sat on the bid here, and depending on if you actually run a stop or not, or if you just watch it, if you sat on the bid here, you've taken a bit of heat, and then it's turned out okay, but it's not always going to turn out okay. So if you were buying on the bid here, for example, and that's way up at 825, you're going, okay, I'll buy on the bid. There's a support zone potentially down there. The way of however you do your technicals, it's blown straight through. If you do run a stop, you've probably been stopped out. If you don't, you've taken quite a bit of heat, and you've had to ride it for, I mean, that's a good couple of years, isn't it? A good few years you've ridden it. If you've taken it off here, if you haven't, you had a chance to become profitable just in here. That's the start of 2015 or mid 2015. And then it's turned south again. So you can see what I mean by sitting on the bid. Sitting on the bid, it doesn't really match for me anyway. I don't see it as confirmation. You're not getting the confirmation you need. And that's where people can come unstuck quite a lot. And that's probably the difference I find. Well, I'm seeing in it between someone that's obviously consistently profitable, or maybe they're just sitting around that break even type of trading, whether there's, they are making money but they're losing money, and it's all that sort of break even. I think by just waiting that for confirmation, and that could mean giving up some gains. I mean, who cares in the long scheme of things? If you can bump up your strike rate from say 50% to 60% and still get your 2 to 1, um, then that's what you're after. Even if you're getting 1 to 1 and you're getting 60% right or 65% right, by just waiting for that confirmation, that means you're a profitable trader. And by confirmation, I mean the high lows starting to build this type of price action. Uh, and that's what I'd be looking for on the weekly charts anyway. So if you get down to the daily, it's really if this presses, and it's probably showing really early signs. If it can press down and pick up that higher low at 950 and start to lift, then we've got our entry. We know that we've got this confirmed level at $9 on the weekly chart. So there's longer term traders are going to start to buy it up. The daily traders are starting to buy it up. So everything's on our side. Anyway, there you go. That was a long-winded sermon, wasn't it? All right, what's the next we've got there? IVO. Ooh, looks a bit small. 43 grand today. Let's just go straight off the weekly. Yeah, it started to pop. You can see this little pop in the daily, but it's popped before and it's ground down. So, for me, that trend is down. The weekly's down, the daily's down. It's just whether or not, at around 1 cent, it makes for some value for people. Um, wouldn't have a clue what they do, but if they do, this would be for me if I was going to jump in it, pure news driven or fundamentally driven. Look at that massive, actually, week of volume last week. Good volume coming in, which is probably similar to what's happened in the past in December last year. Some good volume coming, but that doesn't mean anything. You get this volume coming, and then the market grinds down again, takes out these lows at 7. Is that 7 cents? I think it is. No, it's not. It's 0.7 of a cent. So it took out the lows back here. I mean, there's nothing to say that that can't happen, and this thing could be slowly going to zero. We don't know, and that's again, like I said, is working off that confirmation of a high low. If you can get your high low, then jump in. Because the high low is just confirmation. You're not the only one thinking the same thing. You're not the only one forming a positive opinion on this stock. And if you are, and there's only a handful of others, you don't have the weight of numbers behind your trade, then that thing's going to probably turn around and head south on you. So that's the idea behind your higher lows, why I love them so much. It seems to work. So AVL. So AVL is one I've definitely got my eye on too. I think it's got some work to do. So um, anyway, we'll go over this and we'll try to get through the other ones there, Magna. We'll go through AVL, get through the others for the other guys, and then come back to it if we've got some time. But this one I do like. It's if we just flick over the weekly first, you can see it's done a lot of work through here, and it's only started to hold some higher lows back in, say, the end of 2016 and through 2017. Let's just draw that up. So for me, that's ideally if I'm going to place my capital at risk, that's what I want to be seeing. And you can see it played out quite nicely. You've got a higher low, well, essentially through there is just above a cent and a half. Then this is the pop-up we're looking for. Perfect little pullback. You could have bought it. I mean, this is all in hindsight, obviously, anywhere above sort of that 2 cent mark, or buy it on the breakout through 2.5 cents with your risk right down at 1.5, for instance. Played out beautifully. It was probably 2 or 3 to 1 on this pop-up here. You could have booked 2 to 3 to 1. Then what you can see it's been doing since then, it's holding. So of this move up, that's probably about a 50% retracement, give or take. And it's been holding up the good part of all of this, well, pretty much this year. And we're starting to get confirmation that's holding up again and inside higher low. So it's all looking on the weekly, it's looking quite positive. And this inside higher low led to a break out into new highs and touching on that 7 cent mark. The thing is, we've had quite a deep retracement of just this move up here. So just going down to the daily, just bearing that in mind that potentially that a deeper correction is always a sign that maybe there's a few more buyers that are getting out, and they're getting out in a bit more of a hurry than previous. It doesn't mean too much because it did turn here just before we got to that inside high low. So I'll mark this up on the daily. Whoopsie daisy. So it is, that's your probably your 3.5 cent mark. That's your inside the high low that we're talking about, around that 4 cent. We've just touched on, I don't know, that's probably about 4.3, say, and we've done it in 2 moves down, and we have reacted off there. Now, so for me, if I draw this in a different color now, what I'm looking for, I want to see this do some work. I want the price action to prove to me that what I'm setting up here for a trade is right. And again, it all comes down to a bit of a retracement. We're getting to that overbought territory. So this little move up here is starting to run out of steam, potentially. So from there, when you're running out of steam, there's one of two ways. Well, you're going to go up or down. If the buyers are giving it a good nudge and the sellers are watching it, and especially if you bought it in this 6 cent mark, if you're watching that and you haven't got back to break even, are you prepared to get out or are you prepared to hold? And the same, if you bought it well up here at 6.5 to 7 cents mark, you bought it on this little breakout and it's turned around and retraced on you, haven't got out yet. So there's all that fuel, that selling pressure that could potentially come into the market. I'm not saying it's a lot, but it is potential selling pressure that could come into the market. And you don't know how much or how hard they're going to push it down. So what we'd be looking for from there is if the market can pull back, which I do expect that when it runs out of buying pressure, the buyers are all done their job, the sellers are ready and watching it, and you don't want to muck around if you're willing. If you're willing to get out, you don't want to muck around and wait to see what everyone else is doing. You're probably just going to bail if it starts to show a couple of red candles. So from there, that's why I do expect if you can't do any more buying, there's going to come some selling into the market. So it's whether or not we hold up, and that's the next step. That's sort of the next piece of the puzzle, I guess you could say. If we're starting to come down and we start to get this type of price action, that's where I'd be a bit more confident when you get it in that 2 legs, but you're still holding up above this low at 4.3 or thereabouts. And then you just be looking for your higher lows. And if we can get our higher lows, that's more of a longer term higher low that's just built here. And we get an inside higher low from the daily to start working a buy entry. And I think that's going to have also what I'd like to see a bit more time pass. So it's more than just the weekly. This is not just a reaction higher, but I can see that it's spent a bit of time and you're getting some buyers dragged into the market. They're getting excited and they want to have a go at it. That's the sort of price action I want to see before I start throwing some money at this trade. But either way, I think it's got, you can see on that chart we've drawn up, it's got early stages. Everything's showing. You've got the moving averages are up. That 20 is above the 50, which you want to see. You just want to see it contract a little bit and start to build some inside high lows again before throwing some money. So if we can see that, yeah, it's worth a buy. So we'll keep an eye on this one anyway. Does that make sense there? All right, we got that. Next one, we'll get on to Z1P. Now this is one we've had on the, oh, missed it. That's all I could say. So just taking a step back, the weekly, that you can see when things go like this, the start of 2018, it went near vertical. When it goes near vertical, a lot of heat has to come out of that market, and it did. We got that retracement back. Then we started buys, started drawing the line in the sand around that 80 cent mark, and started supporting it. So again, that's just a higher low, and that's solid buying support. That's where there's a lot of buyers that see value in that stock or see that, okay, if I can buy it then and it starts to lift, then I'm going to get something up my sleeve. And if I'm wrong, I can at least book a minor profit or break even trade. So that's your weekly higher low that's built. And you can see that we've had that trend up, we've had that contraction, and it started to get supported around 60 cents, just above 60 cents. And that led to this spike up in the start of the year. Then we got some heat coming back out of the market. So some sellers just booking some gains, some opportunistic traders, which is good, which is always going to happen, especially on a vertical. So when things go vertical, the higher they go, the deeper I find the retracements. But as long as it can hold a higher low, it's still got some positive reasons to buy into that share price. So on the daily, this is all that same price action. It started to lift. We got a pullback, started to lift here. So really, you had an entry potentially through. I'll just mark up the entries the way I see it. I do like Zipper's good. There's obviously this move on's gone quite strong. This is where we were looking at it, but I missed. I think I got caught out with this move back down. I didn't expect it to come down quite as far. But either way, I mean, that's still your setup. You had this move through here, support. You've got this zone through here, which chopped around. It was probably the first lift, and this is really just a pullback into the zone, into that previous price action between, was it 75 and 90. So it's a good little retracement here, and then it started to lift. Would have been a great entry here with risk, entry through $1, risk about 90 cents, say. I know it's about a 10% move, but you've got 2 to 1 there. You've had a deeper correction here, which I don't like the deeper corrections as much. I'd rather it to be a bit more controlled, but then you've just had another entry, probably as of today, with your risk at 105. So there's nothing wrong with that entry here. And for there, you'd expect that would take you through 220 and potentially take you up to 130. So I think that, for me, that price action is quite nice on the daily chart. It's getting a bit extended here, so you probably want to be on the front foot if it starts to look like it's running out of steam. But you'd want to, potentially, if you bought it today, you'd want tomorrow to be a positive day as well, from open to close. See if you can just edge up into the close, even if it just gets to 120, and then I would expect that, and then you probably cop a few breakout traders through 123 that could edge it through, or at least touching on that 130 mark, and that way you've got another sort of a, 2 to 1 trade there as well. So I think that one's quite good. Either way, the weekly trend is up. This daily trend is starting to lift. And if you just go back to that, we'll go back to the weekly just where you can assess it. If that's the case, if you take it from this low, even if it's just around 60 up to $1.35, what's that? 75 cents. If you take 75 cents from roughly that low at 80, where does that take us? About $1.50. So potentially this move up, this leg up could take us up to $1.50, especially if it gets a bit ahead of itself. Because that weekly is still, it's not really in an overbought territory. It could still chop around like that, or it could just get excited and boom, straight up. So it's something to keep an eye on. I would anyway, and I'm going to. So there you go, John. I hope that helps, mate. As long as you know where your risk is, even if this is getting a bit extended on the daily, there's nothing wrong with that entry, because you want to put your risk down here. Now, if you get stopped into a trade, you buy it on a push through 112.5. You got your stop, even if you have your stop down below $1, this high low. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you get stopped out, there's something wrong with the trade. All right. So there's nothing wrong with getting stopped out. You're giving it a go. I mean, especially if you get this type of price section, it just kicks off. You'll just be laughing, won't you? But definitely this trade is going in the right direction. You're getting buyers starting to support it at higher levels. They're getting a bit eager to step into the market. They want to be part of the action. So that's it's a good reason to be in it. EHL. This one's not as convincing for me. For me, it's probably based around this weekly. Just go back a step. When you look at I know a lot of people don't go back to the monthly, but just see that monthly chart. It's pushed up to 40 cents, but it's running out of steam here. You're getting a bit overextended on the monthly. Now, what's happened on the weekly? It's coming off that overbought territory. So sellers have started to give it a bit of a nudge down, and only got down to about 32.5 before it started to lift. And you can see that on this little pop-up, 32.5 through here. Didn't get too far before we started getting some selling pressure again. So potentially it's starting to get capped around $1 at 40 cents. So if you're looking to buy it, ideally you'd want to see it clear 40, pull back, build your high low, and then go. Not much to say about that one, but that's what I'd be looking for. I wouldn't want to get caught up buying it here and finding a cent later or 2 cents later, there is some selling pressure again. And then you start getting a push down, followed by a lower high again, and taking out the lows and pressing down to 33 or 34. Because you don't know if that's going to press down and it's going to give up, whether this longer term, there might be some longer term sellers in here that bought it potentially at 10 cents that are looking to get out. You don't know what's happening. You don't want to give it too much room to move, because if this thing rolls over, you either take a much bigger stop than you should, or if you don't use stops, this one could be, one that you put in your bottom drawer for a few years. So that's why I'm always trying to assess what's happening on the different time frames, what's happening on the monthly, and then breaking it down to, okay, am I seeing similar heaviness in the price action on the weekly? Yeah, potentially I'm seeing a bit of heavy price action. By heavy, I mean it's had this little run up. This candle, big red candle, okay, it's sold down. Here, if it was positive, this green candle should have gone through the previous highs. For me, that should have gone through 40 cents. Instead, We've had this little, okay, it's only a little red candle. It's tried to go again, had a deeper correction, tried to go again a third time and couldn't, and had to have a deeper correction and take out the low. I think it took out the low at 33 cents. It did. It got down to 32 points. So it's only, say, half a cent. So it's pretty much retested on that low. I think I'll draw this up. I think this one's interesting from a price action perspective. So what you saw is, once it come back down here, this leg up should have taken out those highs, which it couldn't. Then you started getting heavy. It started coming down and getting a bit heavy. We've retested the lows and it's starting to lift. Are we getting a bit heavy at just 38? You can see that it's getting to the overbought territory again, but it's at a lower level. So there's going to come a time when, if you've been buying it through here, or if you're buying and you've got your risk below 30, say at 32, if you're a technical trader, of course, if you've got your risk below there, you're going to start to look at it and start to reassess, go, look, it's traded those, it's finding support at 33, but at the same token, there's a seller, there's someone that wants to get out. There's a group of people that want to get out at 38 or to 40. And if they were getting out at 40, they're not waiting till it hits 40 anymore. They're waiting till it gets to 38. So they want to be out for whatever reason. Now, do they know something that I don't know? I'm never going to try to ask the question, but that's always a factor. There's always someone that knows something that you don't, and if they've got a bigger position, they're going to take some time to get out. And I would rather be on the sidelines with this one. That's if I'm in. I'd rather be on the sidelines, reassess it, and wait till it proves itself again. And for me to prove itself, I want to see if that's 40. I want to see it pop up to 40, and if it contracts from there, then I'm looking for my high low. Then I'll probably be happy to throw some risk at it because it's showing you that there's a bit of excitement. Buyers are starting to take control here with a push through 40. They're cleaning it out, pushing through, and it's pulling back. And it's probably going to do that price action, especially if it's been a bit heavy around that zone. And it's probably going to do that when it clears out that, if there is a big seller in there or a few sellers, once it clears them out, if you can get that pullback, then it's probably something that you'd be happy to throw your risk at. All right. I hope that makes sense there. All right. So EHL FMG. See if we can get an FMG. Just in the daily, I wouldn't go near it at this time. That's in a downtrend on the daily charts. It tried to get up to 4. Got a bit confused. It's confused a bit today, so it's down 3% today. And looking at that, if you go to the most recent price action on the weekly is down as well. So whether or not we're trying to pick a bottom here on the weekly, which potentially, excuse me, it could. Just a bit of a drink to clear the throat. You can see that weekly's in a downtrend, so it's had this press up through $7, pushed down, popped up, lower high, retested the lows, another lower high, took out the lows, another lower high. So it's just continually going down on the weekly time frame. So what if you're looking for a buy? I mean, the one thing that sort of got me confident, well, not confident, I wouldn't jump into it, is what's building. And it could be just the fact that, there's all these China issues to work through. It is grinding lower. So that's a lot different to that move up. That move up was quite positive, quite strong. This is more of a grind, and we're probably somewhere around 50% now, retracement of that leg up. So that's not too bad. When you can break it down and it's still showing a bit of buying support. I mean, it's showing a bit of buying in here. It's still a bigger seller than buyer. And if you're buying it and you're buying a big parcel, you're not just going to sit on the bid and try to soak up all the selling pressure. You're going to try to average down. And that's what, to me, if this is a fund or whoever's buying a large position, or is a big group buying a large position, I don't know, you'd be doing it that way. So as a smaller trader, as someone that's a bit more nimble, you would be looking for your higher low. So from here, if I'm trading it from the weekly, obviously want to break up through here, then look for, break up, then look for some sort of contraction, and then my higher low to work from again on my weekly charts. You can break that down to a daily, because all you're really looking for, well, let's just take a step back. Potentially, this is what I'm looking for on the weekly. And if we break that down onto a daily, I might be looking for this sort of price action. Then it starts to lift and starts getting a bit ahead of itself. That's what I'll be looking for off my daily chart. So you can see the difference. That's one sort of pullback on a weekly, and then it goes, but you want to break it down to your daily charts to try to refine your entry. because it is sitting around, not a bad area on your stochastics. It's soaking up the selling pressure. And it's only really last week that it was quite positive. And that's probably on the back of the China, or what's happened between China and the US. On the daily, yeah, I wouldn't be touching this just yet. I think it's got some work to do. It's getting overbought, if anything, on the daily. So I think for me, I'd be sitting on the sidelines just waiting and watching this one before you potentially build some positivity into the market. LYC, let's see if we can get through that. Look, this is only a smallie. Did I alert this? I can't remember if I've alerted this before or not. Let's look at the weekly because I think it is choppy and it's going to be a tougher one to trade. You're going to have to be on your guard with this one because it's probably going to move fast. But just off the weekly, the price action is potentially building. So really, we had this push up here, good high low here. Well, we can make that a bit straighter. And then it's pressed up. We had a big sell off down here, took out this low, and we're just really from there, you're just trying to keep an eye on what happens when we get back down to the lows. And you can see it did take out this low only on a minor scale, and I'm not probably if it took it out at all. That's just below 10. Yeah, so it only took it out slightly before we get it popped up. Retested this zone just below 10 cents, and then we've got it lifting again, and it's lifted right back up into that 24 mark. So you can see the price action's building. That's finding some buying support, and they got a bit excited there. But the thing is, the anchor for this downtrend was quite a long way away. So what you'd be looking for from here, if you can break it down, and that's not bad. This is a high low in my book with a washout at 14 cents. So that's a weekly high low. So in that respect, you can see what's been building here. We've got our high low. It's starting to break up. So it's just that same old pattern that we're looking for. So on a big scale, you can see it's had a big move up, a big pullback. Buyers are starting to step in earlier than the lows at 2 cents. At around 10 cents, they started to lift it again. They've reacted off the high. So if you booked at something from 12 up to 24, yeah, you double your money. Great. You probably would look to take some profit off the table and just book something. And of course, you've got this sell off down here, and the started buyers are now starting to lift off. They're not waiting till it gets down to 10. They're just waiting to see it's down at 14. Okay, we're jumping in again, and it's starting to lift. So if you break that down to the daily to try to refine that entry, look, I'd probably just be, for me, I think it's, I mean, if you follow it and if you wanted to get into it, you would be just looking for a high low. I mean, if you can get, so that's your breakdown. For me, that's probably, we'll just draw it a bit differently. That's your support zone through here with a washout, which is fine. And then we've got that. I mean, the problem is it would have, if you just bought it through here, this is why I'm always waiting for that high low to build. If you just bought it, say 8.5, bang, straight back down at 11.5, it would have been killing you. If you can hold it through that, great. But instead, I'd be looking for potentially you could have bought it through 19 with your stop just below 17. This is only it's very small sort of higher levels because it's probably a very thin stock and it's going to be whippy. So it's something that's it's not for the faint-hearted, but I think the price action is starting to lift and it's starting to rise. And if you can get a bit of a move on here and you get up to 25, there's probably going to be quite a bit of action on the weekly basis because it gets up through 25. I'd rather see it pull back from here and build a nice solid higher low. And what that's doing is dragging in more volume, more buyers, and really confirm, just increasing the volume in this stock. So then you can see it's a clear cut. There's just more players in the market. And then if you can get your clear cut higher low, there, yeah, it's worth throwing some risk at there. Alrighty. Now, where are we? Where are we? We've got LOC. Just catching up with the comments. EDE, the last one there. Yeah, that's your weekly chart. Weekly charts give me no enthusiasm whatsoever. And the only thing is that it's cheap. I mean, if you say that's cheap, that's good. But again, don't forget, being stuck in a stock for a year is just as bad as losing in my book. And I've got some rubbish in my portfolio at the moment because I wasn't taking too much, and they were just really small ones. And it's more sort of story based, but I don't like it, and I wish I never got into them. It's easy in hindsight, but like I said, it's as bad. Just getting stuck in a stock is as bad as a loser. Now, to say this has come down from 35 cents all the way down to about 4 cents now, there's nothing to say that that can't just go sideways for the next year and just hover around 3 or 4 cents. And if you bought it up at 17, then you're sitting in that. And then it's going to come a time where you just go, look, I'm just going to use whatever capital's left in it. If I put 10 grand into it and it's now 5 grand, you're better off putting that 5 grand somewhere else to try to build it up. Because if it looks like it's going to go sideways for the next year or two, you'd rather be out of it. Um, so in saying all that, I mean, that weekly's not showing me any sign to jump in it at the moment. And the daily is pretty much the same. It's in a grind lower. I'd rather see, I want to see a good move higher like this. And then I want to see a higher low and I want to see that confirm itself. But at the moment, even after this little pop up, I'm guarantee you would have been some buyers in here looking for that extension and they've got caught with a grind lower again. So I'd rather see everyone else get caught than myself if I'm going to throw some risk or throw some money into it. But at the moment, that's not showing me anything on that daily chart to want to buy it. Apart from it being, it's in oversold territory, but it's been in oversold territory here and hasn't done too much. Popped up, come back down oversold. So it's been oversold a long time so into oversold territory a fair few times, and it just keeps making those new minor lower lows. So it looks like there's some, people still getting out, people still selling, and you'd rather see, like I said, if we can draw that, if it's just in a bit of a grind lower, you want to see that shock higher, and then maybe and I want this to be over a good period of time, so it starts to build, and you want to see that choppy price action maybe, and then some higher lows starting to lift, and that might start to get a bit of run on, but I think it's not going to happen over a couple of days or a couple of weeks. That's going to take some time to build that sort of price action, and that's going to be where the MAs are moving down to starting to lift, and if we can draw that, I'll attempt to draw them. You can see what I mean. So the MAs at the moment are down. So you want to see those start to lift and start to be bouncing off those MAs. That's what you want to see. So at the moment, the MAs are down. So if we just get price action from here, if it doesn't go right through, you might just get it, hold the MAs on the way down and just start to chop that way and keep grinding lower. So you don't want to just jump in for the hell of it. You want to see the price action prove itself. And I think it's going to take some time on EDE anyway. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. That's probably about it, guys. I might have to call it a day there. But I hope we got through everything. I know there's a few we missed just before that, Magna, on the ones previously. But look, we'll try to get into them on Thursday if we can. Like I said, guys, thanks very much for joining me. We're back in on Thursday. Well, I will be back in on Thursday at 12:30, and I hope you can join me. And we'll have another chat then. Listen to the tones of my voice, and hopefully I have myself organised when we start as well. All right, guys, have a great couple of days, and I'll speak to you again on Thursday. Thanks for joining me.